Hi, welcome to another issue of the Ship It Show. Today we're joined by Archis from Polyverse. Polyverse is a great partner with us. We do a lot of things with you and the team.
Yep.
We have a great event coming up. Check out our website, Joint Polyverse and Ship on Day One workshop. Archis is going to be there.
Yes, I'm going to be there.
Fantastic. Well, for those of the viewers that don't know Polyverse, why don't you just give us a quick intro on what you do, who you are?
Yes, so Polyverse is a moving target defense cybersecurity company, and we specialize in moving the surface area of your attack so that the attackers have a harder time than the defenders.
Great. So today I wanted to talk about a hot topic for us, and it's obviously the topic of our workshop as well, which is securing DevOps pipelines.
Right.
So I think traditionally information security teams have taken an approach where you would harden different stages of where software was running. You'd have different security profiles for test, Devo, quality assurance machines. You'd have different security profiles for production, and you'd have all sorts of traffic sniffing and firewalls and defense mechanisms and security scans running across all these different pieces of infrastructure.
Right.
And the infrastructure was a known quantity. You would know exactly what was happening, where it was running, and it would even be physical racks in some cases. Then came the move to the cloud and cloud infrastructure, and that kind of freaked people out a little bit. And now you're dealing with virtualization, and there was some concerns there. But now we're talking about developers being able to specify infrastructure as configuration, and really us not really knowing in any deterministic way what is going to be running in production or how. So how do you think about assessing the security posture, and how do you think about that from an information security perspective?
Right. So the best way to think about that is to focus on application level security. Right. Look at the app itself and look at securing the app. Right, not the infrastructure. So back in the day, we used to think about things like if I secure my infrastructure, if I secure my pipeline, if I secure where something comes from, then by definition the app is secure.
Right.
And when writing the code, I don't have to worry about it. I just write my code and it is 100% secure. Right. That paradigm now shifts into saying, I'm running in a hostile environment, right? I'm always hostile every single time, right? And so you run in that. And that's how you change it. A great example is all the Spectre and Meltdown bugs, right? They basically break hypervisors, right? Which means there's no isolation today that I would call secure.
Wow. So when you talk about securing the application versus securing the infrastructure, that's a bit of a cultural shift, right?
It is a cultural shift, right? So InfoSec is no longer this. So InfoSec, to draw an analogy, right, would be like the security guards outside a building, right? So you're in the building, and the building is 100% secure, nothing can touch you, right? And then you have these security guards who keep the bad people out, good people in, right? A cultural shift is now we're all responsible for security at all times, right? Every email, every machine, every laptop, right, that you leave open at a coffee shop, right? That's security.
It's a massively different security posture. So I think one of the things that I've heard a lot of people say is, okay, we now have to concern ourselves much more with application security, and we have to concern ourselves much more with container security. There are tools that I can point at my container and point at my application, and they will assert security. What's your position on those? And I think there's one in the Docker Hub right now that is popular. I forget the name of it, but there's a tool that you can point at your container. It'll run a bunch of scans, and it'll tell you, okay, here are the things you need to patch, here are the things you don't. And if you pass it, the sort of unhidden, or the hidden assumption is, if you pass that, then things will be more secure.
Right. So I would say the emotion is not misplaced, right? When we do make this cultural shift, right, there are a few simple rules that people can follow, right, that make them more secure. But the way the intent is good, but the execution is mistaken, right? So pointing something to somewhere. Okay, let me give a fundamental rule here, which is don't externalize security, right? There is no one else that you can point to. There's nothing else that you can point at, right? There's no external actor who's going to come in and say, just because I exist, you're secure. And there is no such system, right? You're secure because of who you are, and that's why the cultural shift is both jarring but also so exciting.
So you would advocate using it for a tool, not a decision?
Yes.
Great. And then the next question, sorry, this is a little bit of a story we're painting here. The next question is, okay, now I've run one of these tools, Archis, you're trying to deploy something to production next week, because that's normally the amount of notice that you give your security team.
Yep.
You're trying to deploy something next week, the security team run a scan at it, and then they sit there and say, here are 300 tickets, you can't launch until you fix all these tickets.
So I've been there many times, right? So there's a new thing that I'm promoting heavily called impact modeling, right? Which I think should be the new thing going forward, right? Today we do something called threat modeling, right? And there's many threats, right? Literally right now, right, this bulb could explode in a very specific way that could kill both of us, right? Yeah, I mean the LED, right? There's some initial physical conditions that would cause that LED to break, right? So if we did a threat model of this room, right, we're exceptionally under threat. If we did an impact model, right, that's where the LED comes in. As the LED doesn't have that much of an impact, we'd probably get a bruise, but yeah, right. But the bottom line is, right, when you look at security postures, look at the impacts that assume. So I have this famous slide that I show in all my presentations, which is ask what then, don't ask what if. Right? So what happens if this was to happen, right? And what is the impact of that? And then sort by impact and go attack all those top 100 things, right? So look at sigmas, right? Go by sigma, right? 1 sigma, 2 sigma, 3 sigma of risk.
Nice. Okay, so the next question is, when in a traditional information security environment, it's very control focused, right? It is to your point, reducing the number of attack vectors and controlling the risks and controlling risks by risk reduction. Basically sitting there and saying mitigated, just going down the list. So you're moving from a scenario in many information security environments where the control element is counterproductive to a fast-moving software delivery pipeline.
Right.
So you have to move from control to like almost trust, but trust isn't really good enough,
Right.
So how have you seen that be successful? Is it trust and verify? Is it trust? Is it control then trust? Is it trust then control? Like, where do you strike the balance between restricting developers but also making sure that what they're delivering isn't going to cause a customer impacting event?
Right. So this is where impact reduction is a big tool that I advocate a lot, right? Which is, so for instance, as an example, our entire delivery pipeline, right, uses SHA-based addressing, and that means if someone actually broke in, right, there's no way that they can inject bad code without it sticking out big time, right? And this is not a security thing, right? Just a way that we do the pipeline that allows us to both maintain control, but do it rapidly, fast, lightweight, right? So what I would say is it's not about giving up control. It's about externalizing decision making. Let's call it automated control, right? Give tools to other people that they can then use to enforce your decisions or your ideologies or your preferences across their systems. But the idea of one person manually going and spinning up a server is archaic, right? Doesn't work anymore.
So just quickly, just to kind of tie it back to the statements at the beginning, how can Polyverse help? How does the moving target defense help in this production line software development world that we're living in?
So yeah, it's a great question actually. So we actually started in the DevOps world. We started literally about a year after Docker was a bunch of. You were
committed to Swarm or?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
We started with Docker and we grew with Docker. We started with DevOps, with Jenkins, with pipelines, right? So we all came from worlds where we'd run large infrastructure projects before. And so we do a few things, but the key thing that all our tools do are they're operationally viable and they are headless, which means they don't pop up, they defend, right? So our premium product is a scrambled Linux system, right? What happens is you just point all your Linux boxes to Polyverse, and every host in your organization will have a different binary layout for your entire host the entire OS,
Nice.
right, from the ground up. And what that means is attacks which are replicatable, which just run across mass amounts of fleets, right? They just don't move. They don't move laterally. The attacker doesn't know how your code is laid out, right? And we're coming out with like there's more things in the pipeline which are actually going to come out in the public domain very soon, which people can take advantage of.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you are creating new locks.
Yes, yes, we are fundamentally accepting that this idea of one person, this idea of like reducing risk by isolating doesn't work anymore, right? It is a different paradigm, and we need tools that are easy, that are lightweight, that everyone can use, and that stay out of your way until they're needed, and that don't add performance hits, right? And so all of these, you can't have a Kaizen tool, right? A tool that does this but changes that and affects that and has side effects, right?
Which some tools do.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much
Thank you.
for joining us, and we'll see you at the event
Yes.
in June. Thank
Yes,
you.
I'm very excited.